something shifted in me the day I turned 74. I was sitting in the kitchen, watching my wife wipe away tears after another long phone call with the kids. It wasn't even her problem, but there she was, carrying it all like she always had. And I remember thinking, when did we start believing that growing older meant carrying everyone else's burdens? Why do we keep pouring from a cup that's almost empty? The truth is, after 70, peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. In this reflection, I want to talk about why it's okay, even necessary, to stop being the storm absorber and start being the calm in the middle of it all. First, let's talk about weight. Not the physical kind, but the emotional kind. Because after 70, emotional weight is heavier than physical weight. We often talk about how our backs ache, how our knees give out, how we can't carry the groceries like we used to. But let me tell you something that's harder to carry than any bag of flour. Guilt, worry, family tension. And after 70, emotional burdens feel 10 times heavier. I remember talking to James, a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran from Ohio. He told me one morning, "I've buried friends in war, but nothing eats me up like watching my daughter struggle and not being able to fix it." His voice trembled. "She won't listen to me anymore, but I keep showing up, paying bills, helping with the grandkids, even when my chest tightens from the stress." James was carrying more than his heart could take. Literally. 2 months later, he had a mild stroke. The doctor said it wasn't just his diet, it was stress. Then there's the loneliness of being the strong one. You spend decades being the rock of the family. You're the one people cry to, borrow from, lean on. But here's the truth. The strong ones are rarely asked how they're doing, because people assume they're fine. Eleanor, a 75-year-old widow from British Columbia, once said something that hit me deep. "I spent 40 years making sure everyone in this family had what they needed. But now that I'm alone, nobody even asks if I want company. I'm just the dependable one until they don't need me." Her eyes were wet when she said, "I feel like wallpaper. I'm here, but no one sees me anymore." That moment stayed with me, because behind every strong senior is often someone exhausted and forgotten. And when we don't set emotional boundaries, we pay for it, sometimes with our health. We've been taught that love means sacrifice, but too much sacrifice without rest leads to burnout and real physical illness. Stress in our 70s and 80s doesn't just fade. It lodges itself in our bones, our heart, our sleep. Frank, 79, from Arizona, used to be the go-to guy for his large family. Every call, every emergency, every opinion, he was always there. But at his yearly checkup, his doctor told him his blood pressure was dangerously high, and his cortisol levels were through the roof. Frank laughed and said, "Doc, I don't drink, I walk every morning, what's the problem?" The doctor looked him in the eye and said, "Frank, it's your family stress. You're carrying their emotional weight like it's your own." Frank told me later, "That was the day I realized love doesn't mean losing yourself. And sometimes, in trying to fix everything, we not only lose ourselves, we also prevent others from growing." Linda, 77, from Colorado, had a 42-year-old son who just lost his job. Again, she dipped into her savings to help with rent, just like she had 3 times before. But this time she broke down in tears. "I can't keep doing this," she said. "I raised him, I loved him, but I'm tired of being his parachute." That same week, she joined a watercolor class and started saying no. And something incredible happened. Her son figured things out. Linda told me, smiling, "Turns out the world didn't end when I stopped fixing everything. I just started sleeping better." Then there's rest. Let me say this loud. Rest is not a reward, it's a right. Especially after a life of working, raising kids, surviving grief and loss. But so many seniors still live on call, answering phones, solving problems, going above and beyond, until they burn out. I'll never forget Richard, 81, from Minnesota. Tall man, proud World War II history buff. He was still attending every family function, cooking for others, babysitting his great-grandkids. One day he fell asleep in the middle of reading to them, and didn't wake up for over 2 hours. When he woke, he said quietly, "I didn't know how tired I was. I've been running on empty since Mary died." That day he decided to step back from the chaos. "From now on," he said, "I choose quiet over noise, stillness over stress." And finally, let's talk about involvement. The pressure to stay involved can rob you of your final years of joy. We think staying involved in everyone's lives keeps us connected, but sometimes it just keeps us busy. And empty. Gloria, 80, from Maine, was helping raise her daughter's children. Again, school drop-offs, lunches, homework. She loved them deeply, but one afternoon she sat in her garden, looked up at the sky and whispered, I miss myself. When I asked her what that meant, she said, I used to sit in this garden with a book, just breathing. Now I'm racing again, at an age when I should be watching cloud. She didn't stop loving her family, but she started loving herself too. And that changed everything. So if you're listening to this and you're past 70, I want to tell you know what I've seen far too often? Seniors who keep themselves busy with everyone else's drama, not just out of love, but to avoid the silence in their own hearts. We think we're helping, but sometimes we're hiding. There's a man named Harold, 79, from Georgia. Widower, his wife passed away 8 years ago, and ever since he's been the family's unofficial counselor. Calls every night, patient when siblings fight, babysitting, lending money. One day I asked him, Harold, when was the last time you did something just for yourself? He looked down and said, I wouldn't even know what that is anymore. Then he paused and whispered, sometimes I think I keep helping them just so I don't have to sit alone with my grief. That broke me, because we don't talk about that enough, how caretaking becomes a distraction from healing. But sooner or later that pain comes back, and it deserves your attention too. Then there's the quiet resentment that builds when you say yes too often. Nobody talks about it, but it grows, like a slow leak in a tire. You keep going, but you're wearing thin. Carolyn, 82, from upstate New York, spent years helping her daughter raise twins. Every day she'd drive over, cook, clean, do laundry. Never complained, but I noticed she was getting quieter. One afternoon she said, I feel like a servant. I love them, but I'm not seen anymore. I asked if she'd talk to her daughter. She shook her head. No point. If I say anything, they'll just say I'm being dramatic. And what happened next broke her heart. 1 week, she didn't feel, her daughter didn't check in, didn't ask if she was okay, just texted, you coming today? That was the moment Carolyn realized all her effort had become expected, not appreciated. And when appreciation disappears, love can start to feel like labor. That's not what family should feel like. Here's another hard truth. People treat your time the way you teach them to. When you're always available, always saying yes, it's not even their fault. It's what we allow. Roger, 76, from Illinois, was a sharp guy. Former business owner, used to command respect. But in retirement, he told me, now I'm just the family taxi and therapist. His son would call at 10 at night to vent about work. His grandkids expected him to drive them around no notice. And when Roger tried to say no one weekend, just once, his daughter snapped, what else do you even have to do? That sentence hurt. He told me, that's when I realized, they don't see me as a man with a life, just a resource, a tool. It changed something in him. The next week he started blocking out time on his calendar, just for himself, walks, movies, quiet coffee mornings. It's funny, he said, when you start respecting your time, others do too. And you know what else is at stake? Your health. Study after study shows that seniors who live in chaos, constant interruptions, stress, tension, they decline faster. It's not just about stress. It's about rhythm. After 70, your body needs calm, predictability, stillness. I met Florence, 84, in a senior yoga class in California. She had the energy of someone 20 years younger. When I asked her what her secret was, she smiled and said, peace. I protect it like a lion protects her cubs. She told me she used to be in the middle of everything. Family calls, drama, gossip, even old neighbor feuds. But after a health scare at 78, she drew a line. I stopped answering calls after dinner. I turned off the news. I only let kindness in. That saying no to your church, your kids, your community somehow makes you cold. But saying no can be an act of self-preservation, of wisdom. Edwin, 80, from Tennessee, used to say yes to everything. His church leaned on him for everything. Events, cleanup, study groups. He loved them, but it was getting too much. One Sunday, after another long night cleaning, he collapsed from exhaustion. At the hospital, the doctor told him, your heart's fine, but your body's screaming for rest. That was the wake-up call. When he got home, Edwin said no, for the first time in years. I love you all, he said, but I need to rest now. It's my time. And you know what? They respected him. They found someone else. Edwin told me, turns out the world keeps spinning when I sit down. And here's the hardest part. Trusting your family to grow without you fixing everything. We tell ourselves, if I stop helping, they'll fall apart. But often the opposite is true. Dolores, 77, from Toronto, raised 4 kids mostly on her own. When her eldest went through a painful divorce, she got pulled into every detail. Long phone calls, emotional roller coasters. One night she sat in bed and whispered, I don't want to carry this anymore. Not out of apathy, but out of wisdom. She told her son the next day, I love you, but I can't be your therapist. I'm your mother. I need to protect my peace now. He was upset at first, but over time he adjusted. He found support. He grew. Dolores smiled when she told me, turn out letting go was the most loving thing I've ever done. And finally, let me leave you with this. You have a right to enjoy these years on your terms. These aren't leftovers. They're not some footnote to your life story. They are your golden check, and you have the right to live them freely. Barbara, 85, from Vermont, said it best. I've raised 5 kids, buried 2 husbands, worked 40 years, survived breast cancer. And now I garden, I read, I say no when I want, and I feel no guilt. I asked her if her family ever complains. She chuckled sometimes, but they also tell me I'm happier, calmer. When you stop carrying everything, you shine. You don't need to be the anchor anymore. Sometimes it's enough to be the still water. Calm, reflective, free. You know, the turning point for most of us isn't a big dramatic moment. It's something small. A quiet morning when you realize your hands aren't shaking anymore. A phone that doesn't ring, and for the first time you're grateful. A meal alone that tastes better because it comes with silence. Every person I've told you about, Harold, Carolyn, Roger, Dolores, they didn't stop caring. They didn't walk away from their families. They just made one small decision: to stop sacrificing their peace for problems they didn't cause and can't fix. And that, my friend, is not abandonment. That's wisdom, elderly wisdom. So how did they do it? It always starts with awareness. Doris from Florida said it best. You can't change what you don't admit is hurting you. She started by turning off her phone at 7 p.m. That was it, one boundary, but over time that single decision opened a door. A door to her own life. Painting again, reading, breathing. Some nights she just sat on the porch and watched the moon. She said, I'd forgotten how beautiful silence can be. For Leonard, it was learning to say, I can't. Those 2 words took him a lifetime to learn. But once he did, he found something amazing. His family didn't fall apart. His niece moved out, his son got another job. And Leonard, he finally got to wake up without dreading the day. Edwin, who used to do everything at church, realized something powerful. When you stop being the one who says yes to everything, others learn to rise. And when they rise, it doesn't mean you're less needed. It means you finally get to be honored in a new way. Not for what you do, but for who you are. And Gloria, sweet Gloria, who missed her own company, found peace in her own backyard. The simple act of sitting still became sacred. I spent 50 years rushing, she told me. Now I let the world rush around me. I stay still. That's my power now. You see, there's a pattern in all of this. Seniors who step back don't lose love. They often gain deeper, truer connection. Why? Because when you're no longer stretched thin, you show up calmer, clearer, and more present. People feel that. They trust it. They come to you not just for help, but for comfort, for reflection. That's what Elderly Reflections is about. That's what you were made for at this stage of life. Not chaos, not fixing, not burning out, but being. Now, maybe you're listening and thinking, I don't even know where to start. Let me give you something simple. Tonight, after this video ends, take 1 hour, just for you. No phone, no requests, just silence. Maybe write, maybe pray, maybe just sit. And tomorrow, do it again. That's where peace begins. Not in saying no to everyone, but in saying yes to yourself, finally. And if you're afraid they'll be disappointed, let them be. Disappointment fades, your health, your calm, your joy. They matter more than their temporary inconvenience. And don't be surprised when over time they begin to admire you for it. You've spent a lifetime giving, fixing, showing up, and now you have permission to stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. After 70, peace is no longer a dream, it's a right. You don't need to answer every call, solve every problem, or explain yourself to anyone. The calm you've been searching for? It begins the moment you choose yourself. So take the walk alone. Say no when your body says rest. Turn off the phone. Let others carry their own weight. Not because you're selfish, but because you're finally wise enough to know what matters most. I'll leave you with something my friend Walter said after he stepped back from his family's chaos. I thought they'd fall apart without me. Turns out they just needed space to stand on their own. And I needed space to breathe. If this message touched something in you today, I invite you to share it with someone you care about. And if you're new here, hit that like button and subscribe for more reflections like this. Lessons from the elderly for a peaceful, grounded life. Tell me in the comments where you watching from today. I read every reply. You matter here.